In order to take a closer look at autism and how it may manifest in your students, we are going to look at these 8 learning style differences that are often present in some way with your students on the autism spectrum. It is also important to note that although we are looking through the lens of autism, some of these differences may also be present in other students with another disability such as ADHD, or even students with no diagnosed disability. Your students with autism will more than likely have some differences or deficits in regard to social communication. They may struggle to have social emotional reciprocity or understanding that communication is a two-way street. It's a back and forth conversation where we share interests, we initiate conversations, and we respond to interactions with other people. Also understanding nonverbal behaviors, either ones that we use ourselves or that others use. Also, it can be very difficult for your learners on the spectrum to develop, maintain, and understand relationships either with their peers or adults. Additionally, your students with autism will have some differences or deficits in regard to restrictive or repetitive behaviors. They may have repetitive motor movements such as hand flapping or speech with repeated words or phrases. They may have a very strong need for sameness, routines, or ritualized patterns. Some may have restricted or fixated interests that are a bit more different than those of their peers. And they may also be either hyper or hyposensitive to different sensory input that they experience. In regard to executive functioning, your students on the spectrum will need a lot of support in managing their time, sequencing the order of their tasks, knowing to know what to do first, second, or third. Sometimes just getting started with a task will be difficult for them, or knowing when their work is truly finished and complete. Organizing their materials or their work could be a struggle for them, and visual supports will be very crucial to help them know what to do and how to do it. In regard to sensory processing, your students may be very easily overstimulated, which could trigger a meltdown, or they may be understimulated and may engage in some behaviors to seek out that sensory input that they so desperately are needing. They may have a hard time filtering out sensory input from their environment, dealing with large open spaces and knowing where their body should be, as well as having anxiety due to some of these sensory issues. They may need some very explicit instruction for coping strategies, or they may need more breaks throughout the day, even when they're unable to ask for those in the moment. Your students with autism are more than likely going to be visual learners. They are going to learn more from what they see because they will have some difficulty with auditory processing. Oftentimes, we use too many abstract concepts, and some of the skills that we need to teach our students are very abstract. And the words that we say oftentimes are too abstract, in that if you can't draw it, it's too abstract. Words that we use in phrases that we assume our students would understand may need a visual support to help. Additionally, we cannot assume that our students with autism are automatically picking up skills that other students are. They may have a difficult time generalizing those skills, either with different adults in different classrooms, or using different materials, or with different levels of prompts. Just because they were able to have that skill and ability in one environment with one teacher doesn't necessarily mean they can automatically generalize and use that same skill in a different environment or with a different person. Additionally, their specific memory is going to be much stronger than putting together multiple ideas. Your students with autism may have what's called sticky attention. They may have a difficult time disengaging from a task and shifting to a new task. They may be very single channel in their abilities. They may not be able to multitask very well or make choices or judgments very quickly or easily. The expression "you can't see the forest for the trees" often applies to your learners with autism. Instead of seeing a forest, they may just see that one tree in front of them. They can be very detail-oriented and have a hard time seeing that big picture. Additionally, understanding the perspectives of others can be a real challenge. They will struggle with joint attention, which is that first indication that we have as young toddlers even to share interests and enjoyment with others around us. Your autistic students will have a hard time understanding that different people think different things and have different experiences. And that may cause some difficulty in understanding and responding to others. Additionally, with multitasking, it is two very different skills for your students with autism to look at you and listen to you. So oftentimes we need to prioritize which one skill is most important in the moment. Here you see an illustration used to describe some of the concepts previously mentioned. This image here, if I were to show this to you and ask you to respond to the question, "What is this?" You may say that it's a park or it's a summer camp. And most of the time, if you show the same picture to a student or an adult with autism, they may first identify the very specific details, such as it's a picnic, or it's a sandbox, or it's a skate ramp. They can more easily see those specific details rather than putting them all together for that big picture. And one final illustration is something called the Sally-Ann test. This is often used to identify how strong or weak of a theory of mind one has. It's probably a bit difficult to see on your screen, so I will talk you through this one quickly. At the top of this illustration, we have two individuals. We have Sally on the left in a red dress and Ann on the right in a blue dress. Sally puts her ball in the yellow basket, and then Sally goes away. While Sally is away, Ann moves the ball from the basket to the box. Where will Sally look for her ball when she returns? Now, as neurotypical adults, we can assume that Sally is going to look in the basket for her ball because that's where she left it. A student with autism will probably say that Sally is going to look for her ball in the box because it's in the box. We see that it was put in the box, and your students with autism are not going to be able to take on Sally's perspective and understand that she was out of the room and didn't see that Ann moved the ball while she was away. This will come into play during conflict resolution or social skills training and helping your students understand why others do and think the way that they do.